So when it comes to trading options, one of my favorite strategies is the wheel strategy. I love the wheel strategy. In fact, I wrote a book about the wheel strategy called the Super Wheel Option Strategy. This book available on Amazon. You can find a link in the description below. And I've made a lot of videos about the wheel strategy as well. The wheel strategy is essentially a system of selling cash secured puts and covered calls, and sometimes being assigned on your cash secured puts and your covered calls. And that really is one of the biggest complaints I see newer traders especially. They have this complaint with the wheel strategy. They don't like being assigned long or short shares of stock. Many of these people that are supposedly running the wheel complain when their cash secured put gets assigned or when their covered call gets assigned, but that's actually part of the wheel. Assignment is a part of the wheel. It's a necessary part of the wheel. You can't really run the wheel unless you're being assigned on your puts and calls at least occasionally. So why did these traders not want to take assignment on their cash secured puts or their covered calls? Well, the reason is typically when you take assignment on a cash secured put, you're being put long shares of stock, but of course the underlying stock is dropping, right? The underlying stock had to drop. In some cases, it had to drop a lot for you to be assigned on that cash secured put. And you don't want to be buying long shares of stock on a stock that has been dropping. You know, that's kind of the mental thought behind that is I don't want to take assignment on something that has been dropping in price. And the same thing with those that complain on being assigned on their covered calls. Now you have to sell back your long shares of stock, but you're selling it back at a bit of a discount price because the underlying stock now is rising. Maybe it's rising in a big way, way past your covered call. But now, of course, you're forced to sell your shares back at the call strike price rather than the current market price, which could be much higher. You know, it's like, well, you know, I'm not getting the best possible price on any of this because I'm getting a bad price on my cash secured puts when they get assigned. I'm getting a bad price on my covered calls when they get assigned. Well, you're thinking about it in the wrong way. When you put on that cash secured put, you should go into it knowing that assignment is a very real possibility, and that strike price, you need to be comfortable purchasing those shares at that strike price. If you're running the wheel and you sell a cash secured put, and all of a sudden it's in the money, you know, and you're pretty close to expiration and you're about to get assigned on the stock, this should not be something that you worry about. You should not be concerned at all. You should have zero concerns about that because when you put on the trade, you should have already mentally been prepared. I'm going to buy 100 shares of stock at that price. If you weren't mentally prepared to do that, you should have never sold that particular cash secured put. And the same thing with the covered calls. If you do not want to sell back your long shares of stock to the market on a covered call, well, guess what? Don't sell a covered call then, right? Just hold on to the shares of stock. If you're essentially treating those long shares of stock like a long-term investment where you just want to hold the shares for many months, maybe multiple years into the future, well, just sit on the shares of stock. There's nothing wrong with you doing that if that's what you want to do, but don't call yourself running the wheel and then complain because you sold a covered call and the covered call got assigned, meaning you made the max profit on the covered call. Here's the thing with the covered call. When you get assigned on a covered call, you made the max possible profit on that covered call. When it gets assigned, you made the maximum profit. And you're complaining? I mean, what are you complaining about? Again, assignment is part of the wheel. Please go into it with just be mentally prepared. Hey, I probably will get assigned on this cash secured put or this covered call, and I'm okay with it. And if you're not okay with it, just don't run the wheel, right? There's plenty of options trading strategies out there. A matter of fact, when it comes to selling puts, you don't have to treat every put you sell as a cash secured put. I don't. You know, there's very few stocks out there that I really want to hold long shares of stock in. You know, I might run the wheel on companies like Apple or Nvidia or AMD's one I run the wheel on occasion. Coinbase is another one. Like there's a few stocks that I like long term. I like holding shares of stock. Also, they're great trading vehicles as far as selling puts and calls around the long shares of stock while I'm wheeling them. You know, those are great stocks. I don't mind owning those companies. But 99% of the publicly traded companies on the stock market, I would never want to take assignment of shares. But I do sell puts in a lot of those companies, right? But I treat those puts as not cash secured, meaning I sell the put, And if it goes against me, I take the loss. I have a certain stop loss, a mental stop loss in mind where, if I lose 200 or 300% of the max possible profit on the trade, you know what? I just go ahead and get out of the trade. Mentally, I know, hey, this trade's not working out. I don't want the shares in this company, right? I just close the trade and take the loss. There's nothing wrong with occasionally taking a loss. Taking losses also is part of trading. And one other thing you can do, if you are running the wheel, but you're still kind of fearful of assignment on your puts or your calls, you could always roll. There's nothing wrong with that cash secured put. If you can roll it out in time to the next month for a credit, you can always roll it. Same thing with your covered calls. If your covered call is about to get assigned and you don't want to give up your long shares of stock, see if you can roll that short call out in time. Maybe you can do so for additional credit. Sometimes you can roll out in time and prevent that eventual assignment. Sometimes you can put that assignment off. But I think a lot of this fear of assignment on the wheel strategy, especially, I think this comes from just a lack of experience, because if it is a strong company, it's a company that you don't mind owning shares of stock in, then you should never be unhappy of an assignment on your cash secured puts or your covered calls. We already mentioned assignment on a covered call means you made the max possible profit. An assignment on a cash secured put means, hey, I get to buy shares of a company that I wanted shares of anyway at a 10% discount, 20% discount, sometimes 30% discount in price. That is like a huge win in my book. That's not something I should be unhappy about. In fact, I should be thrilled about that assignment. And again, assignment, that is just part of running the wheel. You actually do want to have some assignments when you're running the wheel. You don't want to be assigned on every single put you sell. You don't want to be assigned on every single covered call you sell. But occasionally you do want assignment to happen. It needs to occasionally happen. It doesn't need to happen on every single trade. In fact, that's probably the worst thing that you could do as a wheel trader, is to pick some extremely volatile stock. And there's some stocks that have pretty wild volatility. Don't run the wheel on those, because that is kind of dangerous, because you can end up in a situation where you sell a cash secured put in a really volatile stock and it crashes down hard. You get assigned at a pretty bad price from where the stock is currently trading. Now you can't even sell covered calls above your cost basis. So you sell a covered call wherever you can sell it, below your cost basis. And then this very volatile stock all of a sudden shoots back up in price. So you kind of got screwed on the cash secured put side of the wheel trade. You also got screwed on the covered call part of the wheel trade. And then maybe you decide to keep running the wheel and sell more cash secured puts and more covered calls. Maybe you keep getting these gigantic whipsaw motions where you're just, that's the worst possible kind of stock to trade the wheel on, is those extremely volatile stocks. So kind of be picky on the underlyings that you choose to trade. All in all, though, I think the wheel strategy is one of the safer option strategies, in my opinion, because if most people's complaint about the wheel strategy is, oh, I got assigned on my cash secured put and now have to buy the stock at an extreme discount, well, that's not a real complaint. Or if your biggest complaint is, well, I hate getting assigned on my covered calls and having to sell my stock back at a profit, that's not a real complaint either. Anyway, just some food for thought, guys. Peace.